guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Well, just as I suspected, Sarah Boone's suitcase murder trial has been delayed again. So let's check out this clip from Court TV.
Boone's case.
State of Florida versus Sarah Boone, 2020 CF 2603. State of Florida.
David Cacciatore on behalf of the state.
Defense.
Frank Bankowitz.
Let's go ahead and swear Ms. Boone in.
May you please raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Morning, ma'am. Tell me your name and your date of birth.
Sarah Boone, October 10th, 1977.
All right, we're here for pretrial conference today. Mr. Cacciatore, where do you stand in preparing to proceed forward to trial?
State's ready, Your Honor.
Mr. Bankwitz, where do you stand in regards to preparing for trial?
The defense is not ready. We're requesting a continuance. We are having difficult time finding an expert who is willing to work for the JAC rates. And so I'm still, it's an essential part of the case, basically. It's never been initiated before by any of the prior attorneys that I'm aware of.
In broad terms, what's the nature, what's the field?
Spouse defense.
Okay.
Statutorily, we have to give the state notice, sufficient time, and name of the expert and the essential elements that they'll be testifying to.
Okay. Mr. Cacciatore, what's your position in regard to the defense request for continuance?
I would have no objection to another role.
So, Mr. Bankwitz, how deeply have you plumbed the depths of the pool of experts in this field to find out or find one who's willing to work for the JAC rate?
Well, I've actually talked to three, and but they don't have contracts with JAC and are not willing to work with JAC. And I've made some other inroads with battered woman shelters, trying to get their psychologists, who'd be willing. Problem is willing to testify, basically.
Okay. Because of the concern about the compensation rate for testimony?
Well, that's one of the things. And to be honest with you, this case has had so much notoriety that people don't want to be involved.
Okay. So, Mr. Bankwitz, I'm certainly willing to give you additional time based on my understanding of the case. I understand why that would be a defense the defense would want to explore about potentially presenting. What I'm not sure about is whether the inability to find an expert forever delays the trial of the case.
I wouldn't expect it to be a forever delay, Judge. And you know me better than that.
Mr. Cacciatore, well, I just want to make sure everyone in the room understood that, I'll give reasonable amounts of time to prepare a defense. The defendant's entitled to an adequate defense, but they're not necessarily entitled to the exact defense they would prefer to have if resources were unlimited. So, Mr. Cacciatore, remind me, where are we as far as lining up your various homicide cases for trial? I know we have some things set to go to trial in the June trial period.
Yes, we have both Mr. Herlong and Mr. Sowell set for then. And then as far as this trial period, we have Mr. Hall and potentially Mr. Ofori as well. If I could ask of the defense, because I think it would make a difference in the timing of the continuance in this case, does the defense intend to hire an expert to testify generally as to the precepts and the things that go along with battered spouse syndrome, or do they intend to hire an expert that will evaluate Mrs. Boone and want to comment on her directly? And the reason I ask that is because I think the case law is clear that if it's the latter thing, then the state is entitled to have her sit down with our own expert to be evaluated as well. So that would obviously take more time if that is going to be the path they're going to go.
Mr. Banquets, are you in a position
Number
to
two is definitely what we're looking at, Judge. Although number one would be incorporated in that as far as their general ability and their expertise in the area.
Would you agree that if in fact you retain an expert and they're going to opine specifically on Ms. Boone's state of mind at the time of the incident, that opens the door for the state to also have an expert? All right.
Most definitely.
So here's what I am, and Mr. Cashflow, let me ask you this. Let's say that turns out not to be an issue. We're not going to have two experts. How long would it otherwise take you to present your case? Just rough idea.
I would say 3 days.
And other than this potential defense, Mr. Banquets, and is that including jury selection, Mr. Cacciatore?
No. I probably 3.5 days with jury selection.
All right. And Mr. Banquets, other than this potential defense, if we picked a jury in 1 day, the state presented their case in 2.5 days, how long do you anticipate a defense presentation would be at this point?
I'd say at least 3 days.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. I'll grant the continuance. I'm thinking continuing out to the July 11th pretrial, July 24th trial period.
How long is that trial period, Judge? I have a time-certain death penalty case in Lake County starting the second week in August.
That's a 3-week trial period, so it'd be the week starting Monday, July 24th, Monday, July 31st, and then the last week of the trial period would be Monday, August 7th.
That's when I'm scheduled to start picking a jury in Lake County.
Well, let's do this. I want to set it for that date. That way you'll have a much better idea of what's actually happening on your death penalty case in Lake County. I understand that they're priority cases, but I also know that they're the cases where if a problem comes up, no matter what a judge has said before, they're likely to allow the case to move because they don't want to try it twice.
Just to advise the court, this case had to be continued at the last minute because of one of the attorney's wives basically had a stroke. And so it was a week before we were scheduled to start in that case. But Judge Davis up there, now that has, I won't say resolved itself, but is in a better position. Judge Davis has advised all of us that we're going, quote, come hell or high water.
See, I try not to say things like that because I feel like I'm just tempting fate.
That's just Lake County, Judge. What do you expect?
Well, having never worked there, it means nothing to me. So, I'll grant the change, July 11th pretrial, July 24th trial period. And let's go ahead and do this. While I'm giving July 11th as the date, let's go ahead and have the lawyers reach out to my judicial assistant and just like we did this time, schedule
a
status separate, unique date for pretrial so that I have, y'all have my undivided attention when we talk about the case. I don't have 97 other lawyers tapping their fingers, waiting to get to me.
Sounds good, Judge.
Okay.
All right. So, it actually got pushed out further than I thought it would be pushed out. However, their dockets are getting quite busy all over the place. So, hopefully we can get this trial underway in July and July 24th. And it looks like they're saying it'll probably take about 6 days, 7 days for the trial. And then hopefully they'll go from there. So we shall see if this one finally gets forward. It's been way too long in waiting, which of course that seems to be par for the course on a lot of these cases since COVID, as well as the fact that Sarah Boone has had multiple lawyers and what have you. That said, she penned a letter to the judge and her lawyer. So we're going to also go through that. Sarah Boone, the Florida woman accused of murdering her boyfriend, who was found inside a zipped suitcase, has sent letters to her attorney and the judge in her case, saying that she has not been represented fairly. The letter, dated March 22nd, is addressed to Frank Bankowitz, who we just heard in court. That's her lawyer currently, who was appointed as Boone's attorney on July 11th of 2022. In the letter, which appears to be missing pages, Boone says that she has been trying to reach Bankowitz using 2 different phone numbers, but has been unable to reach him in 8 months. I, even in my desperation to speak with you, had an outside caller try to reach you on my behalf, who tried reaching your office 3 times over the last almost 3 weeks, leaving a voicemail each time with no reply. That's from her letter. Boone was arrested for the murder of her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., back on February 24th, 2020. Boone told police that she and Torres had been drinking and playing a game of hide and seek when she zipped him into a suitcase. In the affidavit of probable cause filed in the case, police said Boone claimed to have gone up to bed upstairs and came down hours later to find Torres dead inside the suitcase. Detectives said they found videos on Boone's phone that showed Torres yelling for help from inside the suitcase. And as we know, and if you haven't seen my videos previously or seen the videos that she took on her cell phone, those are pretty damning to Miss Boone. The original attorney who represented Boone, Mauricio Padilla, initially tried to withdraw from the case on April 18, 2022. Boone wrote a letter to the judge in response, saying she wanted the judge to, quote, be fully aware of the magnitude of my shock and disappointment in the betrayal of Mr. Padilla, as I have not, in any way by anyone, been provided any explanation for the aforementioned withdrawal, etc., unquote. Padilla withdrew his motion, but then filed it once again in the following month, saying that the attorney-client relationship had become, quote, adversarial. Well, I think she might be kind of hard to work with, you know? And just seeing her interrogation room with detectives, I don't think she's the easiest person to work with, and I can't imagine what these attorneys have been dealing with. So I think part of it is the system's a little slow, and part of it is Sarah herself. A series of public defenders were then appointed to represent Boone, with each forced to withdraw, citing a conflict of interest. Frank Bankowitz was formally named Boone's attorney on July 11, 2022, according to court records. On October 3rd, Boone sent a letter to the judge, saying she had only spoken with her new attorney 3 times. On January 10, 2023, Boone sent a letter to Bankowitz and the judge in the case, saying that she was concerned because she had not heard from her lawyer since the previous status hearing back on December 27th of 2022. Boone referenced an upcoming pre-trial conference, which was scheduled for January 17th in the letter, and notes she would like to attend. I'm sure she would like to attend because, you know, hey, what's a field trip out of her prison cell? Court records indicate that Boone was not present for the pre-trial conference held January 17th. The order for the following status conference, February 10th, notes defendant's attendance is mandatory. Court records indicate the defendant was present at that hearing. In her most recent letter, which is dated March 22nd, Boone said she learned that she has another pretrial conference scheduled for March 31st, which is what we just watched, and was told, quote, "For whatever reason, I am unable to attend any of my conferences. How am I supposed to know what's going on and what you're reporting and what is being discussed between all the other parties except me, the main component in my case," unquote. Boone referenced Court TV in her letter, asking why the media would be allowed to attend pretrial conferences and hearings when she was not. Well, in all fairness, you are confined to a prison cell for allegedly killing your boyfriend, and number two, it's Court TV and has the right to attend any and all trials. That's public records. Help me understand, please, how can Court TV, different news channel, and even, quote, professional YouTubers attend my pretrial conference and I cannot? How? I'm sure one of the other parties can help me with updates since they will be all in attendance. I would like to be a part of all of this, seeing as it all pertains to me. Please, it is my right. The letter ends abruptly, and it appears some pages may be missing. So I really actually don't disagree with her. If the tables were turned, of course they wouldn't be, because I wouldn't put my boyfriend or anyone else in a suitcase and not let them out. First of all, I wouldn't put them in the suitcase, and secondly, if they asked to come out, I think I'd let them out, Sarah. But it is her case, it is her trial, and I believe it is her right to be there, and I believe that's why it's not being denied at all for her at this point. That said, when she's questioning why the media can be there, well, the media, court proceedings, beyond very few and far between, are pretty much public record. And so the general public who's free and, out there can attend pretty much any trial they want, except for like juveniles and certain things other than that. But yeah, her trial is definitely, all her trial proceedings, her pre-trial conferences and what have you, they're open to the media and the public. So it looks like they're going to try to get this expert. The experts that they've consulted, which it sounds like Mr. Bankowitz has had 3, they don't want to take the cheap pay that comes from being part of the defense team. And that being number 1, and number 2, they probably don't want to be associated with the suitcase murder case. So I can understand that as well. So, I'm sure they're going to find someone. Someone will take the case. Somebody will be willing to come on as a defense expert witness, talk to Sarah, and it looks like the prosecution is going to also have their own expert probably speak to her as well. But now we've got, April, May, June, most of July before we hit this trial. So yeah, we got quite some time. So they have plenty of time to get the rest of this all ironed out, get all the kinks out on the defense end. And despite the fact that both attorneys seem to have quite the their plans filled up, they've got cases out the wazoo, particularly the state, but it looks like Mr. Bankowitz has a big trial coming up in Lake County. But I think they could fit this trial in before that one. It sounds like it would probably work out. So let's hope we can get this one done soon. Really, it's been way too long. And those have wondered if she could go and complain, Sarah Boone could go and complain about a speedy trial. And I don't believe she can. I don't believe that, due to all her issues with previous attorneys representing her and all the other things, because she's had a lot of issues. And I believe she's somehow waived that particular quote-unquote speedy trial. And then, of course, the whole COVID thing comes into play as well, because there's still a lot of issues and a lot of trials that are behind. Since for a couple of years, things were kind of going at a snail's pace there. But yeah. So, all right. So that is our major update as far as the Sarah Boone suitcase murder trial. And I'll keep everybody apprised of this one because, again, this one's in my backyard. And guess I'll have to plan to go visit the courthouse in downtown Orlando in late July. Looks like be a summer trial for Sarah Boone. All right, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.